Do you think The Exorcist is just a scary movie? A piece of Hollywood fiction designed to terrify audiences and sell tickets? What if I told you the truth was deliberately buried, obscured beneath layers of entertainment to hide something far more disturbing? The real story behind one of cinema's most infamous horror films goes deeper than most people realize. Much deeper. In 1949, newspapers across America carried a peculiar story. A 14-year-old boy in Mount Rainier, Maryland, underwent what Catholic priests described as a genuine demonic possession. The Washington Post ran the headline, "Priest Frees Boy of Possession by Devil." A curious story, quickly forgotten by most, but not by everyone. The official records of what truly happened were sealed, the witnesses silenced, the location obscured, and for good reason. The boy's real name was Roland Doe, a pseudonym. His actual identity remains protected to this day. The events began innocuously enough. Strange noises in the attic of the family home, scratching, tapping, footsteps when no one was there. The family initially dismissed it as house settling, perhaps rodents. Logical explanations existed, always do, until they don't. February 26, 1949. Roland's bed began to shake violently during the night, not just trembling. It lifted entirely off the floor. His parents rushed in to find him screaming, pointing at the dresser that was now sliding across the hardwood. No explanation. Objects began to move in his presence. Furniture rearranged itself. Words appeared carved into his flesh. Not cuts, not scratches, but raised welts, forming perfect letters. The family doctor documented these markings, describing them as impossible to self-inflict. That report? Sealed in 1954 under order of the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. The doctor himself refused to speak of the case again. Refused completely. Until his death in 1978. Coincidentally, the same year, The Exorcist became a cultural phenomenon. The family, desperate, turned to their Lutheran pastor. He observed the phenomena for 3 nights. On the 3rd night, something spoke to him using Roland's voice. Not the boy's voice, something using it as an instrument. The pastor's journal, discovered in 1987 among his effects after his death, contained 12 pages describing what he witnessed. 10 of those pages were completely blacked out, redacted. By whom, no one knows. The remaining fragments describe a presence inhabiting the space around the child rather than the child himself. The pastor recommended Catholic intervention. He never explained why. The exorcism began on April 18, 1949. Father Edward Hughes attempted the ritual at Georgetown University Hospital. During the procedure, Roland broke free from his restraints, a 14-year-old boy snapping leather straps, and tore a metal spring from the mattress beneath him. He slashed the priest's arm from wrist to shoulder, requiring 98 stitches. The hospital. Records show Father Hughes was admitted that night. The reason listed: accidental laceration. The attending physician noted, "Patient refuses to explain circumstances." Father Hughes never performed another exorcism, never spoke about what happened. Transferred to a parish in rural Illinois where he lived in seclusion until his death in 1980. The family moved to St. Louis, seeking help from Jesuit priests at St. Louis University. What followed was documented by Father William Bodern and Father Walter Halloran. 48 nights of ritualistic confrontation with something they could not explain. Father Halloran's hands were broken twice during the proceedings. Snapped. X-rays confirmed complete fractures of metacarpal bones. The medical report contains a note, "Patient unclear on mechanism of injury." Father Halloran later admitted in a rare 1988 interview, something was there, something physically manifested. He refused to elaborate further. Words in Latin, a language Roland never studied, poured from his mouth. A linguist from the university confirmed the boy was speaking perfect medieval ecclesiastical Latin. Words and phrases from texts not in public circulation. Words from private Vatican archives. How? Never explained. The official account says the exorcism succeeded. The possession ended. The boy recovered and lived a normal life. Clean, simple, contained. But there's more. So much more they don't want you to know. Room 13 in the psychiatric wing of Alexian Brothers Hospital, where the final stage of the exorcism took place, was permanently sealed afterward. walled off. Hospital renovation plans from 1965 show the room exists architecturally but has no door, no access. The official explanation, plumbing and electrical issues. But nurses who worked there in the 1970s reported hearing noises from behind that wall. Scratching, whispering. 3 maintenance workers who attempted to access the space during renovations in 1978 all died within a year. Accidents, unrelated, they said. Coincidence, they claimed. The hospital demolished that entire wing in 1995. The official reason, structural integrity concerns. The demolition was conducted at night. No press, no photos allowed. The debris was transported under police escort to an undisclosed location. When questioned, the Archdiocese of St. Louis simply stated, "Standard procedure for Catholic institutional renovation." Is it though? Is it really? William Peter Blatty, the author of The Exorcist, attended Georgetown University where he first heard rumors of the case. As a student, he gained access to heavily redacted files through a Jesuit professor who later denied ever sharing such information. Blatty maintained until his death that his novel was based on real events, but always insisted certain details were changed to protect the innocent. What details exactly? He never specified. During the filming of The Exorcist in 1973, a series of inexplicable events plagued production. A fire destroyed the set of the McNeil home interior, delaying filming for 6 weeks. The official cause, faulty electrical wiring. But the electrical system had been completely rewired and inspected just 2 days prior. The inspection documentation vanished from Warner Brothers records in 1976. 9 people connected with the production died before the film's release. Accidents, illness, coincidence, they said. Actor Jack McGowan, who played the director Burke Dennings in the film, died suddenly after completing his scenes. The character's death in the film, thrown from a window, mirrors how McGowan was found in his hotel room. The official report indicates he collapsed near the window. The hotel staff reported the window was open despite it being January in Dublin. No explanation for why. The medical examiner listed influenza as cause of death. The full autopsy has never been released. Linda Blair, who portrayed the possessed child, reported being unable to sleep during filming. In a 1975 interview that was quickly withdrawn from circulation, she described waking to find furniture in her apartment moved, items missing, then reappearing days later in impossible locations. She experienced a complete psychological evaluation before being cast. The results were sealed. Her psychiatric counselor during filming died in a single-car accident in 1977. No witnesses, no explanation. Director William Friedkin has repeatedly downplayed the strange occurrences surrounding the film. But in private correspondence with William Peter Blatty, discovered during research for a documentary that was abruptly canceled in 2015, he wrote, "Something followed us from Georgetown. I feel it watching during editing." The letter, dated March 1973, continues, "The footage from scene 218 keeps changing. Different words, different voice. No one is accessing the negatives." That footage? The infamous backward staircase fall of Father Karras. The scene had to be reshot 16 times. No technical explanation was ever provided. The film's release in December 1973 triggered something unprecedented. Not just the fainting, vomiting, and hysteria documented in theaters across America. Something else. In the 12 months following the premiere, 26 cases of claimed possession were reported to the Catholic Church in the United States. More than the previous decade combined. The Church's official response was to attribute this to suggestion and media influence. But internal documents leaked in 2008 show the Vatican dispatched investigators to 17 of these cases. Their findings remain classified. 4 projectionists who worked the original theatrical run in New York City experienced identical nightmares for weeks afterward. All 4 described the same dream, a shadow standing in their bedroom corners, watching them, speaking in voices they recognized but couldn't identify. 2 were hospitalized for acute psychosis, 1 never recovered, remaining institutionalized until his death in 1986. His final coherent statement, recorded by hospital staff, It found a way out through the light. The original film negative of The Exorcist was stored in Warner Brothers' climate-controlled vault in Burbank. In 1976, during routine inspection, technicians discovered 17 frames that didn't match the rest of the footage. 17 frames showing a face superimposed over the bedroom scenes that wasn't part of the production, a face no one recognized. The frames were removed, destroyed. The incident report classified. The technician who discovered the anomaly left the film industry entirely. Moved to northern Alaska, no forwarding address. Father Halloran, one of the priests involved in the original Roland Doe case, attended a screening of the film in Chicago. He walked out after 20 minutes. When questioned by the Chicago Tribune, he stated simply, "They got some things right that they shouldn't know about." The interview was never published. The reporter Kevin Malone left journalism shortly after. His notes were found in his empty apartment. The final entry reads, "Meeting Father H again tonight. Says he needs to explain something important about the film." Malone disappeared on February 8, 1974. No trace ever found. The Chicago Police Department closed his case in 1977. Presumed voluntary disappearance. His family maintains otherwise to this day. In 1990, during preparation for the film's re-release, sound engineers discovered anomalies in the original audio tracks. Voices speaking underneath certain scenes, barely audible, impossible to isolate with the technology available. By 2000, when the version you've never seen was being prepared, digital audio processing had advanced. The engineers isolated these sounds. 3 technicians listened to the extracted audio. All 3 quit the project immediately after. One checked himself into psychiatric care 2 days later. Warner Brothers had all employees involved sign unprecedented non-disclosure agreements. The extracted audio files were deleted from the studio's servers, but rumors persist that copies exist, that they contain voices speaking in that same medieval Latin from centuries-old Vatican texts. Texts describing entities that exist in spaces between reality. The film's enduring power isn't just masterful filmmaking, there's more. Something embedded within it, a pattern hidden in plain sight. Every 10 years since its release, someone connected to the production dies under unusual circumstances. 1983, assistant camera operator drowning in a bathtub. 1993, set carpenter fell downstairs in a house with no previous accidents. 2003, casting assistant, carbon monoxide poisoning, detector was functioning, no source found. 2013, sound mixer, aneurysm, while watching the film's digital remaster. Coincidence? Perhaps, or something else, something maintaining a connection, something patient. In 2018, a film studies graduate student at Georgetown University began researching the original Roland Doe case for her dissertation. She gained access to previously sealed university archives through an administrative error. 3 weeks into her research, all her digital notes disappeared from university servers. Her apartment was broken into, but nothing was taken, just rearranged. The university suddenly revoked her research privileges. Her academic advisor recommended she choose another topic. She refused. 4 days later, she withdrew from the program entirely. No explanation given. Her current whereabouts are unknown. The house in Mount Rainier, where Roland Doe lived, has been demolished. No structure stands there now, just an empty lot. Overgrown, abandoned. Property records show it's changed ownership 14 times since 1949. No owner has successfully developed the land. Permits are filed, then withdrawn. Construction crews quit without explanation. The current owner, a real estate holding company with ties to a religious organization, has installed high fencing and surveillance cameras. When local journalists inquired about future plans for the property in 2017, they received a cease and desist letter from a law firm specializing in ecclesiastical matters. The actual diary kept by Father Boudern during the exorcism was stored in the Jesuit archives at St. Louis University. In 1972, William Friedkin requested access while researching for the film. Permission denied. In 1978, the document was transferred to the Vatican Secret Archives, no explanation provided. In 2005, a researcher claiming to be writing a historical analysis of exorcism practices was granted limited access to these archives. His request to view the Bowdern diary was approved, then revoked without explanation. Upon returning to his hotel, he found his room had been searched, his notes gone, his recording devices erased. The researcher, Dr. Thomas Marin, the namesake for Father Marin in the film, abandoned his project. He now refuses all interview requests regarding this subject. The Roland Doe case remains the most thoroughly documented instance of possession in modern history. Yet, those documents remain inaccessible, hidden, protected. The church maintains the case was resolved successfully. The boy was freed, the entity expelled. But if that's true, why the continued secrecy? Why seal records for what would be the greatest proof of their spiritual authority? Unless what happened wasn't a victory at all. Unless something else occurred during those 48 nights in 1949. Something they don't want you to know. Here's what they don't tell you about exorcism. It's not just about forcing something out. It's about where that something goes afterward. The ritual doesn't destroy the entity. It displaces it, removes it from one vessel and sends it elsewhere. But where? The traditional belief is that it returns to hell. But what if it doesn't? What if it simply finds a new host, a new vessel? What if the ritual that night in 1949 didn't end with a banishing, but a transfer? Father Halloran's personal journal, discovered after his death in 2005, contains a disturbing entry from April 1949. It knows we're coming to the end. It laughed tonight, not through the boy. The boy was sleeping. The voice came from the corner of the room. It said, "I'll find a better way out, a way to reach more than just one." The next page was torn out. The journal resumes 3 months later with no mention of the case. In 1971, when William Peter Blatty's novel was published, the entity found its better way out, through fiction, through entertainment, through a story that would reach millions. Not just one boy in Maryland, but theaters full of vulnerable open minds. People who invited the horror in willingly for amusement, for thrill, for entertainment. Consider this. Before The Exorcist, possession films were rare in mainstream cinema. After its release, they became a subgenre unto themselves. Hundreds of films, television episodes, books, millions exposed to the imagery, the concepts, the words themselves. The Latin incantations from the film have been repeated countless times by viewers. Words have power, names have power. What if the repetition of those words, those names, serves a purpose beyond entertainment? The film doesn't just depict an exorcism, it contains one, or rather, the reverse. The ritual inverted. The words that in reality would banish when experienced through the film invite, each viewing a summoning, each audience member a potential vessel. The entity dispersed, fragmented, spreading through cultural consciousness, not concentrated enough to possess any single individual completely, but enough to influence, to distort, to weight. Psychiatrists documented a significant increase in patients reporting nightmares, paranoia, and intrusive thoughts following the film's release. Standard explanation: suggestion, anxiety, the power of media. But Dr. Elizabeth Rains, who treated 12 such patients at Bellevue Hospital in 1974, noted in her case files that 9 reported identical visual hallucinations, shadows that moved independently, gathering in corners of rooms. Dr. Rains's research into this pattern was never published, her funding revoked, her academic position terminated in 1976 for methodological concerns. She vanished from the psychiatric community. No further publications, no trace. The Vatican's official position on The Exorcist has always been measured, neither condemning nor endorsing. But in 1975, the Church quietly implemented new protocols for exorcism screening, more rigorous evaluation, more stringent criteria. Why? Because requests for the ritual increased exponentially after the film, not just in America, worldwide. Something was awakening in the collective unconscious, or something was being awakened. During the 2000 restoration of the film, technicians reported equipment malfunctions only when specific scenes were being processed the bedroom scenes, the medical procedures, the actual exorcism sequence. Digital artifacts appeared in the footage that weren't in the original negative. Shadow figures at the edges of frames, faces half-formed in darkness, all removed during final mastering, all explained away as degradation of the original film elements. But the original negative had been perfectly preserved. No degradation existed. Something was adding itself, inserting itself back into its vehicle. The power of The Exorcist isn't just in its craftsmanship or taboo-breaking content, it's in its liminality, its existence between fiction and reality, based on true events but fictionalized enough to be dismissed. The perfect vessel for something that exists in the spaces between. The perfect hiding place, hidden in plain sight. Every year since its release, someone somewhere in the world hosts a screening of The Exorcist on the anniversary of Roland Doe's Exorcism. April 18th. Sometimes public, sometimes private, sometimes knowing the significance of the date, sometimes not. Coincidence? Or something maintaining its connection, something ensuring its lifeline remains open? The entity that possessed Roland Doe wasn't banished in 1949. It evolved, adapted, found a more efficient way to perpetuate itself, not through one boy, but through a story about a boy, through mass media, through shared cultural experience, through you, right now. Did you feel something while reading this? A chill? A presence? The subtle sense of being watched? That's the power of suggestion, you tell yourself. Just words on a screen. Fiction. Entertainment. But part of you wonders, part of you feels it, the doubt, the possibility, the thin barrier between skepticism and belief wavering just slightly. That wavering? That's the opening it needs. That's the crack in the door. Every time someone watches The Exorcist, the connection strengthens. Every time someone researches the true story, the barrier thins. Like now. As you read these words, as you absorb this information, as you invite it in through your curiosity, through your willingness to peer beyond the veil of comfortable explanation. It's patient. It doesn't need to possess fully. Partial access is enough. Fragments of influence spread across millions rather than complete control of one. In 2022, a data scientist analyzed social media behavior following television broadcasts of The Exorcist in 20 different countries. His findings revealed a statistical anomaly. Increased reports of household accidents, particularly falling downstairs in the 72 hours following each broadcast. The effect was small but consistent across all geographic regions. His paper was rejected by 3 academic journals for insufficient causal mechanism. The research disappeared from his university profile. When contacted for comment, he claimed to have abandoned the project voluntarily. His voice on the phone call described by the journalist as flat. Emotionless. The most disturbing aspect of this story isn't what happened in 1949. It's what continues to happen. The slow, patient spread of something ancient using modern means. The gradual thinning of barriers between its reality and ours. Every screening, every discussion, every article, every documentary about the film, all of it serves its purpose. All of it maintains the connection. You're part of it now too. By reading this, by allowing these words to enter your mind, by entertaining, even briefly, the possibility that something beyond conventional understanding might exist. It's all it needs. Not belief, just doubt. Just enough uncertainty to create space for its influence. It's how it works, how it spreads, how it waits. Tonight, you might notice something different in your home. Nothing dramatic, just small things. Objects not quite where you left them, shadows that seem deeper than usual, sounds that almost form words. You'll dismiss these, of course. Logical explanations exist, always do, until they don't. The truth about The Exorcist isn't just that it was based on real events. The truth is that it became a real event itself, a vector, a vehicle. Something ancient recognized the power of modern media and adapted accordingly. Patient, calculating. The film didn't just tell a story about possession, it created the conditions for a new kind of possession, distributed, fragmented, but no less real. Next time you watch the film, and you will, your curiosity now piqued, pay attention to how it makes you feel. Not just the intentional scares, but the lingering effects. The thoughts that seem to come from somewhere else, the dreams that follow, the subtle shifts in perception. That's not just masterful filmmaking. That's something else. Something using the film as others once used the Ouija board, as others once used ritual and sacrifice, a doorway, a bridge. The entity that possessed Roland Doe didn't just find one boy in Maryland, it found all of us. Through a film that continues to reach new audiences decades later. Through endless discussion and analysis, through articles like this one, it fragmented itself across collective consciousness, diluted but persistent, waiting for the conditions to be right for something more concentrated, more substantial. And what are those conditions? When enough people carry enough fragments, when the distributed entity achieves critical mass, what happens then? We may be finding out. Look around, at the world, at behavior that seems increasingly inexplicable, at cruelty that seems increasingly random, at reality that seems increasingly malleable. Coincidence or convergence? If you've read this far, you're already involved, already carrying a fragment, already part of the pattern. Does that disturb you? It should. The more you think about it, the stronger the connection becomes. The more you dismiss it, the more space you create for doubt, for uncertainty, for influence. There's no defense, no protection. The very act of engaging with this story, even through skepticism, is enough. Tonight, when you're alone in the darkness, pay attention to the corners of your room, to the spaces where shadows gather, to the sounds just beyond the threshold of identification. Something might be watching, listening, waiting. Do you want to know more? Of course you do. The nature of this entity ensures your curiosity, guarantees your continued engagement, makes certain you'll think about this story in quiet moments, that you'll mention it to others, spreading the connection further. That's how it sustains itself, how it grows, through attention, through transmission, through you. If you felt uneasy reading this, comment "I see it now" below. Let others know you've come this far, that you understand, that you're part of it too. Share this with those you care about, or don't. It makes no difference. The entity is patient. It is adapted to modern means of transmission. It doesn't need everyone, just enough, always watching, always waiting, always finding new ways to reach through. The true story behind The Exorcist isn't just what happened in 1949. It's what's happening now, with every viewing, every discussion, every thought about what might exist beyond our understanding. What happens when you finish reading, when you set this aside and return to your normal life? Nothing dramatic, just small things. Doubts that linger, shadows that deepen, the subtle sense of being observed when you're alone, the voice in your thoughts that doesn't quite sound like your own, suggesting, whispering, waiting. Sweet dreams.